Hey, I'm Riley with the B team, and I'm with Maisie, Garrett, and Million, my co-defendants. We are hanging out with Jesse today on his podcast, and we're talking about so much weird stuff. I don't know what kind of title he's going to give this show.
Jesse, thank you so much for getting us back on and redoing this for us. We're really excited. We appreciate it.
Of course, excited to have you guys back on. Like I said, the first episode, the audio decided not to record. Definitely operator error, so my bad about that. It's at the Evergreen, which is my favorite convention by far. And I've talked to a handful of artists that have gone to the Evergreen and gone to other convention, and it's just the atmosphere, it's the people, it's the fact that you guys take care of your artists on a different level than any other convention. It really makes it a magical thing. It's so fun to be a part of.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate that so much. There's a big team behind Evergreen. There's Nikki Carlton she's been a part of this thing since the day one, and this wouldn't happen without Nikki or her hard work and dedication. Of course, the late Joshua Carlton was the huge influence on this thing, and of course, Erin, my wife Erin, is the backbone of this thing. I mean, she's doing everything behind the scenes and never ever seeks out credit, which kills me because she deserves the most of it. And then you guys, of course, you all know Jeremiah. I don't know if we could do this without Jeremiah. He's a big part of this. He makes sure that all the artists have what they need. I mean, it takes a huge team to do this. So it's, a lot of times people think they're giving me credit. I don't deserve the credit. All of those people deserve the credit. And thank you. I really appreciate it. We worked really hard on that show to make it amazing and make it awesome for the artists.
Yeah, and like I said, it definitely is. I've heard the two shows I always hear like the best reviews about. I've never heard anything negative. Is Evergreen and Hunts Vegas. Those are the two that everybody absolutely loves. Never heard a single bad thing. So yeah, it's been awesome.
So the boys just came back from Hunts Vegas.
Yep.
Yeah. They had a good time.
I heard good things about it. I heard good things. Next year, I am going to put that on my list to go to. Sounds like a good time, man.
Yeah, I couldn't go this year. It was rough. I had too much stuff going on, but I missed it. But the boys covered it for me. And Maisie, she won't go anywhere. She doesn't like being seen with any of us ever. She's embarrassed of us constantly. It's terrible.
Oh, I love it. So yeah, I know the big thing we talked about was like the B team philosophy behind it, stuff like that. You guys kind of want to explain that, and then we can jump into it.
We're basically a bunch of losers, I think. Don't you think, Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't, what do they say? If you can't teach. Yeah, we're a bunch of losers. But the thing is, the B team mentality is, I guess, bidding on whose standards you're referring to. Do we have 8 million followers? No, we're just pretty fucking normal people. Are we losers? Yeah, I guess. But we're also okay with that.
And on top of that, you guys have all built some pretty amazing things. So, the conventions, the shops you guys run, like you guys have done amazing. So, and I love the mentality of like, you don't have to conform. You don't have to want to be the rock star that gets all the limelight and stuff like that. And you can still be successful, happy, and enjoy your life.
Well, that's the whole B team philosophy. This thing came along. Frankly, Garrett, Million, and myself have done hundreds of shows, and we've done shows for the last decade together, and we would meet in different places. And of course we would have breakfast and hang out. And what we would do is we'd spend time talking. We've got one of them from Minnesota, another one's from North Dakota. I'm way out here in Springfield, Oregon on the West Coast. And what we started finding is that we would talk about our companies. I don't know what the exact number is. I never do, because none of us can count past 5 over here on the B team. But I think Garrett's got about 20 artists. I've got about 20 artists. Million's got 5 or 6 artists, and that's a huge stable of people. We all own tattoo shops. We own different companies. We're very successful, but we're not obviously in the limelight of tattooing. We're not the heroes in tattooing. We don't have 1 million followers, but we all kind of dealt with struggles coming up. Combined, I think we've got almost 60 years of tattoo experience between the 66 years of tattoo experience, and we started seeing the similarities and the pitfalls and the downfalls of tattooing and work together, just talking in conversations like very forward about what our problems were, and honestly being vulnerable with each other about tattooing and our problems. And I think we all kind of realize that it's okay if you're not a superstar in tattooing and you're not like famous or well known, or you don't have to be the best tattooer in the room to still be relevant in tattooing. And so we started kind of referring to ourselves as the B team. We weren't the A team guys, the big stars. We were the other guys. And we kind of came to grips with that. That's okay that we're not the big superstars, and we probably never will be. But we also realized there are a lot of people just like us in the tattoo business that feel self-conscious about chasing that big dreams of being a big time tattooer. It doesn't have a correlation with success. We're all successful. We're just not popular, right? I don't have any other way to say it. Does that make sense?
100%, man. I mean, it really does seem like, with the rise of Instagram and especially the last 5-6 years, like it has become a popularity contest. And, we do marketing for tattoo shops and they'll reach out to us and they have 500,000 followers, but they're only booked out a week or two. And it's like, there's definitely a very different correlation of being popular versus being successful and keeping your guys busy.
Yeah. It just became a thing that we did. And then, I don't know, as we met more and more people and talked to more and more of our friends, it just kind of grew into, I guess, a network of people that you can call and talk to, and we work on our problems and we go on vacation together. And, so we just thought, let's just put it out there for the 6 people that might listen to us on our stupid little show, because maybe there's somebody out there that's in the same boat we were for a long time, where we felt insignificant and irrelevant. And we felt like we were always going to be second best or third best in this industry. And, like we're kind of here to go, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're doing the best job you can, you're doing the best tattoos you can, and you're being a decent person, like that's winning. That's great. There's more of us than there are of them, and so be a little bit more vulnerable, So we spend our time on the B team on the show talking about, relative business things that work for us, and maybe that might help somebody else. And, we talk about suicide, and we talk about our friends having problems, and how to have a relationship in tattooing without losing your mind or fucking going crazy. And that's the B team in a nutshell, is we can make ourselves vulnerable and we can talk to each other instead of profiling.
I think such a big part of the B team is that honestly, nobody cares about the B team. Nobody cares about the B team members. So we're here to care for each other and look out for each other.
Love that. Because man, you see a lot of people on like Instagram and stuff, and their life looks perfect, and it isn't for anybody. I had pretty close to a mental breakdown like 9 months ago, and I reached out to my mentor, who is just phenomenal. She's killing it, and I was like, "Do you ever just have a mental breakdown?" She's like, "There's at least 3 to 4 days a year I just sit in my bed and cry all day." And I was like, that made me weirdly feel so much better. Like, oh my God, it's not just me. Because yeah, it's hard to be vulnerable with people, especially you look on social media, you see people that look extremely successful. You don't think they have those days, so you don't want to open up about it, but everybody does, no matter where you're at.
You should have called Million. He has a mental breakdown about every 3 days. So, he knows the most about it. Million's like that all the time, just an erratic monster.
I just call it passionate, but everybody else says I'm toxic. So,
my guy. But that's the kind of stuff that we talk about. Since I got Million, you ever had those kind of feelings? You ever gone through that in your 20-some year span of tattooing?
God, yeah.
On a
Quite
regular.
often, where you just like beat yourself down, and then you feel the guilt because you are straight white male, and there's like everybody else has more problems, and then you realize, well, okay, yeah, my problems are still my problems, and then you got to deal with them. And yeah, it's a vicious cycle that you always have to go through. But when you look at social media, you end up seeing this non-human, superficial version of everything, and the comparison all the time, and really that attacks your psyche too. So then you start falling back down that wormhole, and just having buddies around and friends around and colleagues and peers that can kind of, snap you back to reality and be like, yeah, this world ain't that fucking easy. So
I know personally that you went through a great deal of time tattooing alone by yourself without any support at all, which is one of the things that you and me met that way, but you were
Yep.
literally on your own for how long?
the majority of my career, I was, I think it was somewhere around 16 years where I was in a private studio tattooing by myself. And yeah, just kind of tattooing. I was the tattooer in the area. I didn't have any competition. I didn't have any coworkers. I was the only one doing it. So, yeah, it was very much a vacuum that I was in. So that didn't help my growth at all.
And you didn't kill yourself.
Yeah.
Good job.
No, I did not.
I find that amazing. That's part of the B team philosophy right there. Like, you went through these times that a lot of people wouldn't understand, and now you've come through it to a different degree. Like, that's part of the B team right there. You were isolated, you were alone, you didn't have any direction, and you didn't know. And then, coming out of your shell and meeting other people and making yourself vulnerable basically propelled you to what you do today, which I think is pretty amazing.
I do too. I enjoy the hell out of it, and yeah, it wasn't for fear of talking to people. I've always been more of a loud extrovert. My
Yeah.
voice carries, but I also realized that I don't know if it was so much arrogance or pride, but I just thought that I wasn't invited, then I couldn't go. So I spent a long time waiting to be invited to stuff. And then when I finally just said, screw this, I'm going, I realized I had always had an invitation, but nobody knew who I was. So how are they supposed to invite somebody if they don't know who you are?
Well, because you're on the B team, nobody cared who you were.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I was almost on the C team because nobody knew I existed. It wasn't that nobody cared, nobody knew I existed.
And look at you now. Now you, me, and Garrett and Maisie have completely hijacked Jesse's show and took it from him.
Absolutely.
You have no power, brother. Wow, gone. Now you're on the B team. Irrelevance.
It's awesome to be able to, I guess, kind of be vulnerable in that way and talk to other people about it, because anybody that has built a business or tried to build a business knows how fucking hard it is. Like, it's to be kind of cliche, it's lonely at the top. And when I say at the top, I mean trying to manage people, trying to keep this thing running, knowing how you're going to do payroll, like all this stuff. It can be a very lonely existence. Your spouse doesn't understand if you work for yourself. And like, I've been in a relationship, but it's like, why do you work 12 hours a day? It's like, because I have to keep this thing running. And it's, unless you have other people in the same position as you, it's a lonely, lonely road.
It's isolating. That's funny. You said, like, why are you working 12 hours a day? My answer used to be, because you won't let me work 20. But it is isolating. And that's part of that B team philosophy. Like, we were all isolated, and we all think that we're struggling in our shops, and we're thinking that we're dealing with personnel, we're dealing with taxes, and we're dealing with property stuff, and we're dealing with tattoo shows and all of that stuff. And I think all of us kind of feel alone in dealing with it, and that other people don't understand, or I can't talk to other, you know how it is, Jesse. You try to have conversations with people about business, and there's a very few people that can even understand what you're talking about, or they're placating you just to get out of the conversation, or they're just throwing gook at you. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I always felt for a long time that when I started talking about that, the predators kind of came out of the freaking carpet really fast. Like, have you ever been to a Chamber of Commerce meeting? Like, I go all the time to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm big time in the Chamber of Commerce, and I love doing business with the Chamber of Commerce. But there's a certain amount of people there that are predators. And they're like, here, let me be a life coach, or why don't you let me handle your finances? And it's like, no. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in the tattoo world, like we're all in these different places, you know, North Dakota, Minneapolis, Springfield. It's not like I can go down the street and talk about these fears and apparitions that are terrifying me with my competition. They're going to use it against me. That's how I always felt. They're going to use it against me, or they're going to steal an idea from me, or whatever. So you end up making friends with someone 3,000 miles away that you can talk to. That's part of that B team thing. You know, it is a very competitive business in tattooing, but to a point that trust becomes an issue. I've seen you at tattoo shows, and you're dealing with all these great people, talking with all these different people from all walks of life, Jesse. And I bet you could ask half of them the same question and get a completely different answer every time. And the other half of them you ask would have the exact same answer every time. That's the way this business is. So when you're talking about like, how do I become relevant? Oh, your slave got out. I just saw your slave go by. There's a ghost in your room, Jesse.
I'm on a podcast.
Ah! I love that.
Thanks for knocking.
It looked like a goblin.
You know, it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because when we were at the Evergreen, we actually went around with a camera and asked a bunch of people, a bunch of tattoo artists, like if you could give one piece of it, or what's the best piece of advice you've ever heard that's helped you. And we heard a bunch of different stuff. And then I would say about half the people said, find a good mentor, find a good place to do an apprenticeship. So it is funny because it is just about that. But, you know, there's nothing that somebody's going through that somebody else hasn't. That's the biggest thing. You know, we always feel like, oh my God, why me? Why is this happening to me? Almost everybody that's in your position has gone through that exact same thing, that pain, that struggle. It's just a part of growing. It's a part of being successful and getting where you want to in life is learning that, one, how to deal with that, and two, that it's not the end of the world. People have gone through it and they're still, you know, where you want to be at some point in life.
Hey, Garrett.
Yeah.
How many times have you been to a tattoo show and had an interviewer come over and ask you what you thought about tattooing? Has that happened a lot?
Yeah, more so the past few years. Yeah.
Has the answer changed for you over the years?
No, not really. I mean, the only time the answer changes is when the question does. But
That's deep. That's heavy, bro.
no, you know, I'm all about sharing any experience that I've ever had with anyone, or, you know, any business. I don't, you know, like you said earlier, Riley, it's not something I want to go run and tell my local competition and whatnot. I mean, I don't care. They're probably not one of the 6 people that watch our shit anyways, but
There's only 6 people. My mom's one of them, I think.
but you know, I've always been a purveyor of knowledge, you know, like if I know something, I will gladly tell you. Anything that I've experienced, I'm more than happy to share with you. You know, if you want to know the best way to do advertising from my experience or whatever, I'm going to tell you. No holds. I'm not going to pull any punches. I'll give you everything I got.
Yeah.
As to where with me, I don't know anything, but I'm willing to give you my opinion.
That's true. You know, I love that too. Like, you two guys are so amazing like that. I think that's kind of how this all started, is the 3 of us started talking with each other and realized that we could have some very serious conversations without fighting. Which it's amazing, you know, because usually you get any 3 people together and they start fighting with each other or whatever. And we never really have. You know, I mean, I don't want to fight with you, Million. You're a freaking monster. You just tear me apart. Yeah. And Garrett's too smart to trick, so there's no use fighting with you. He's already dominated the conversation and thought of 3 ways to dominate you. And Maisie's mean. I don't want to fight with Maisie ever. Terrible person. Just a horrible person. The 3 of us are pretty cool, but you know, yeah, you know what's up.
For people essentially struggling kind of with this stuff, mindset issues, you know, feel like they're stuck, what would your guys' advice be?
I'm gonna answer that, and before anyone else does, just because I'm kind of going through some shit myself. You know, there's tattooers, you know, sometimes you talk about having a good day or a bad day. or a good hour, a bad hour, you know, if you're in the casino business or whatever. As a tattooer, it's very, very possible to have bad months. It's possible to have bad years. It's possible to have bad decades. You know, what we do, we get so, we're in such demand. We demand so much from ourselves. Our clients demand so much. You know, if you're running a business, you know, every individual tattooer is their own entity. They're their own business as it is. There's a million things going on, and it's really a lot to process. All the meanwhile, you still have to be creative. You can't have a shitty day. You can't fuck up a tattoo. You know, if you're a responsible tattooer, you can't just call in because you don't feel like tattooing that day. There's a lot on our plate, man. There really is. My daughter has been tattooing with me for 5 years, and I wonder if I did the right thing by letting her in this industry. It's a heavy, heavy industry. There's, you know, you find a lot of people with substance abuse problems, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, because this craft kind of breeds that. It's a lot to process. So, you know, one of the things that I'll do is I'll hit up Riley or Million, and, you know, we meet up every week and talk. That's a good way for me to realize that I'm not in it alone either. You know, I'll say something, you know, and Million will be like, oh yeah, that should happen to me last week. Here's how I dealt with it. It's tough, man. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is rough. You know, and I get it. That's rough. You know, getting into this business as a youngster right now, you know, there's more opportunity than there ever was, but I think the margin of error is so slim for these new guys. It's do or die. You have to get good and hang in there. It's not like it used to be where you could coast. You can't. You become irrelevant and insignificant like that. Like that. And it's high stakes. It's high stakes. So I wouldn't worry about, you know, the idea of you know, did I make a mistake getting them into this business? That's something that's, you're trying to look at the future. You can't do that. You know, that's like trying to gauge talent. That's not possible. So I wouldn't even go that way. You know, the trick is, Garrett, it's like, if she's willing to hang in here to do this job, you have got to be hang in there too. You're the mentor, you're the leader, whether you like it or not. And that means that you go through the bad times and the bloody times, just like the good ones.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not entirely on your shoulders, but you know, you are responsible. And I admire you for taking that responsibility. Good for you. So I think you're pretty awesome. Maisie thinks you suck, you know, but I think you're awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Million.
So I guess as far as mindset goes, you know, there's so many tools out there, but again, with the predators in the industry, yeah, be careful, because there's a lot of cats out there that are willing to sell you the package to make all your wild, you know, like Robin leeching the whole thing, like lifestyles of the rich and horrible. And so, you know, just being careful on that kind of stuff, and instead of like with what you do, that makes sense to have somebody that Jesse goes in and works in a field and helps work with you on something that you're not geared for. That makes sense. Or working with, you know, advertising agencies or graphic designers, because, you know, you're not a graphic designer, you're a tattoo portrait artist or something like that. So it makes sense to work in that. But when it comes to working on yourself and your own mindset and your own emotions and feelings and all that sticky stuff that we're not allowed to, you know, to deal with, or we weren't mentored enough to deal with, be careful when you're going out and trying to get somebody to help you. I recently had somebody ask who my mindset coach was, and I said, I don't have one. I've went to done some mindset training and learned some tools that I use, but having a mindset coach seems a little bit off. Now, a therapist, that might be a different story, but you know, I got to get my crazy pills from somebody. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the rise of the internet and online courses and stuff like that. The amount of people that are trying to sell something that they can't do themselves is astronomical. It's a way to make a quick buck, and um, you know, doing your research before you try to invest in anything, any kind of course, anything like that, I think is huge. Because I've seen marketing agencies come into the tattoo space in the last couple of years. They've got no tattoos. They've never been in a chair. They've never worked with tattoo artists. They don't know their audience. It's like they don't last very long, but it's still the fact they came in, they got some shops to work with them that got burned, and then they just move on to the next thing.
well, and there it is. A shop that gets burned, that's an entire family or 5 or 10 families that are actually seriously affected by that burn. Especially being in a position where you're the shop owner, or you have people that you're working with. You bring in the wrong person and you're affecting a lot of lives, not just the cats that are sitting on the couch waiting for the next walk-in.
Yep. Exactly.
That's so hardcore right there. That's hardcore right there. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the B team's not selling anything. We might make some
No.
t-shirts. Maisie will come and mow your yard for $20. She'll do that. She'll mow your yard.
But yeah,
She's
we'll sell merch and we'll slave out Maisie, but that's about it.
That's about all.
We're not going to teach you, like we've said many times before. We're not interested in teaching how to tattoo or how to get better at art or using Procreate or any of the other tools. We're just interested in talking about shit we go through and how we address it from our 3 sometimes similar, but usually very different perspectives with different results. It's nice to be able to talk about the same thing we always all deal with. But if you watch our episodes, there's more times than not that we have 3 very different ways of handling the same damn thing. And none of us are necessarily right or wrong, but just to be able to have the conversation that we're maybe this works. Maybe it works for me. Maybe it works in this situation. But just to hear that stuff, for me, would have been amazing, even 5 years ago in my career, let alone at the beginning.
Yeah, there's having a good group of people. You can't put a price on that, really. And then, like you said, for a lot of things, there's no one right answer. But being able to figure out, talk to people that have been through it, get people's advice, their opinions on it, that have lived it, and then formulating your own plan from there is huge. I mean, with YouTube and stuff like that, there's nothing you shouldn't be able to learn with a good group of friends. There's nothing you shouldn't be able to make it through.
Absolutely. It is the family you build.
Yeah.
Well, this whole future of tattooing, it gets looked at in different lights all the time, especially with the YouTube and the Instagram. I see a lot of people have a gloom and doom, or they're more attracted to the past ways than the future and stuff like that. But I mean, you nailed it right there, Jesse. This is all about opportunity now. Opportunities everywhere. You can grab it and you can run with it or not. I've made a career on building opportunities in different ways for tattooing, and I'm very proud of that. But it's like now opportunities, it's hard to tell what's opportunity and what might be a trap.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to tell. And now we're in this age too, where it's like our leaders, if you will, in the industry, they're getting older, they're dying off, and they're not being replaced in the same way. And it's is this a leader, or is this something that a publicist created? It gets very hard to tell. So it's like, I don't know. I think once again, it reflects on the B team. Like we're without motives of some kind of financial goals or to seek some greater status in tattooing or something like that. Without those motives and being able to be vulnerable, we can talk about things in an honest way, and hopefully, people can see that. I do think though that like the B team philosophy kind of came from all 3 of us, but really it came from this summary of like being in the crowd It's like the Revenge of the Nerds type of scenario. Most people don't know they're in the B team until they meet people in the B team. And they're like, oh, I'm a nerd too. I guess, yeah, okay. And so we're running across that. Like, we just did a show last month where all three of us were at the show. And we ran across people that were like, oh, I watch your podcast. I think it's amazing. And we all three of us were kind of like, us? Really? What? Okay, cool. You know, I
And it was
remember
neat 'cause
I
none
called
of them
Maisie and I
were
was like, I
not-
think we have a fan. I don't know what, you know, what do I do? Should I buy him a soda or something? Or maybe I'll, you know, take a picture of him because that's the only one we're ever going to have. You
Put them
know?
up on the wall.
Yeah.
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 And it was neat because some of them were not actually tattooers, you know.
Mhm.
They were just people that were interested in tattoos or collected tattoos.
Yeah.
They're tattoo adjacent, and they were watching, and I was like, well, it's kind of neat.
That's awesome.
Well,
Uh,
and there's positivity in tattooing that I don't think is being reflected right now. I really don't. I don't think I think there are a lot of people out here with motives in tattooing, especially in social media, of painting a gloom and doom kind of image because it's more profitable for them. Because if the sky's not falling, then their program isn't useful to them, and it's not useful to you. And yeah, there's hard times out there in tattooing. There's boom times too. There are positivities in tattooing that I don't think people are getting to see. And I know that we're putting that out there. We're trying to be positive as we can about tattooing. You know, whether it's like us talking about the positivity of doing tattoo shows or the positivity of marketing your business or the positivity of having good time with your family or your loved ones. Or, I mean, we're doing positive stuff, the three of us, on a regular basis all the time that we're not, you know, that I don't know if people are seeing that positivity, that they can travel and they can go have fun stuff and they can go fishing in Mexico. Or they can go, dude, did you hear about the ice fishing trip we went on? Like, that was amazing. There were like 16 tattoo artists trapped in these 3 ice caves, fishing and freezing to death for fucking a week, thanks to Garrett. Like, he did that. That's amazing tattoo stuff. Like, there are so many people that are never going to be able to experience something like that. When we're going to Ireland in like 4 days and we're going to go run around Ireland and do crazy stuff for no reason other than we can. That's awesome, positive, you know, tattoo stuff. And I don't know if that stuff's getting out there. It's kind of being filtered away. And that fucking bothers me, dude. That sucks.
I think
Like-
the part of the beauty of what we're doing, and hopefully more people take the reins and do it as well, is that we're not trying to package it up as a namaste, you know, meditation, incense. We're just real, you know, Gen Xers with not necessarily a chip on our shoulder, but definitely rough around the edges. But the message in the end is still a positive one, even if it sounds aggressive.
It's only aggressive when Maisie's talking.
That's a classic line of mine. I don't get anxiety. I give it.
These guys, I mean, these guys have these conversations anyway. So I think a big part of what brought us here and why we came to be is because these guys are having these conversations anyway, and by broadcasting it and not doing that for profit, you get 3.5 new, different, incredible perspectives. And hopefully we can help somebody with that.
Am I the half?
You're the half, buddy. I'm
I'm
sorry.
too big for that.
It's not the year of the car. It's the mileage. That's what makes you old.
Oh.
Because you're old.
Yeah, there is a ton of doom and gloom, and the old ways are gone and it's never going to be the same and stuff like that. But I know you guys have all been around long enough that happens every once in a while. There's ups and downs. It will be just as good as it once was. It might take a year, it might take 3 years, 5 years, but it's like tattooing is an industry, and like any industry, there's ups and downs. It's just how the world works.
I'm always jaded about the old days. I didn't like the old days.
Me too.
The old days were terrible. They were terrible times, and the money wasn't there. No matter what they say, the art sucked. We were all strung out, fucking messed up, and we were burned out, and everybody hated us. And I don't see it the same way as a lot of the old timers do, where it was like, oh, it's the good old days. Where it wasn't the good old days. It was cocaine and problems and
Misery.
bullshit. Yeah. And I hated it. I'm so glad that it's not like that. It doesn't have to be like that. Garrett misses it. He loved that shit, but I hate it.
One thing I would like to ask you guys about and get your perspective on is failure. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that are so scared to fail that they won't even try something new or try something different. And I would guess you guys kind of have the same experience that I have with building something that has had some form of successes. I have failed more times than you could possibly imagine. I have done some stupid shit. I have lost a lot of money. I have done, just failed. But that's how you learn it. And then you get to a point that, you might fail, but it doesn't scare you and you're still going to take that step, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But if you fail, it was at least a learning experience.
Failure is necessary.
Yeah.
There's one quote, and I'm not going to give credit to who it was from, but you're going to win or you're going to learn. Both are valuable. It takes failure to get through that success point. I mean, in a craft, in an industry like ours that's ever changing and ever growing, I mean, you've got to step outside of your box a little bit, and sometimes that includes failing. We weren't born with these innate talents or superhuman powers to tattoo exactly what we see. If you're afraid of failure, I got some news for you, buddy, because you're going to be facing a lot of it.
That's just human.
I feel like
What?
mistakes and failure in this industry are inevitable. And on top of that, because of what we do, sometimes they're permanent. I just did a fucking backwards kanji yesterday.
Yes.
That shit sucks and it stays with you. But you're right, Jesse, that we take that as an opportunity to learn. And if we're lucky, we can. Some people can't. But we're here to talk about coping strategies and how to move forward with that and not have that eat you fucking alive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about
That's
the
so
whole-
real. I love Maisie. She's amazing.
I'm not sure about the whole story on it, but something about that Edison didn't invent the light bulb. He come up with 99 ways to not make a light bulb, because it's all about failure, and that's where you're going to learn more. You might get lucky plenty of times, but getting lucky doesn't help you learn.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I've dominated and crushed everything I've ever done in my entire life. Failure. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm good at failure. I'm so good at failure. No, that's not
I got
remotely
Olympic
true
medals
at
in
all.
failing.
But no, that's what I always say when someone talks about failure is I say, I'm good at failure. I put a positive spin on the word failure, which is like jumbo shrimp, but the fact is, it's like, what does that mean? I don't even know the relevance of that. What is failure? You take the guts and you try to create something. You do the best you can at it. Maybe there's a luck factor in there. I don't know. I'm not looking, but there is a work factor and a smart factor in it. And if you're not growing and getting better, it's like my friend Josh Carlton always said, the answer to all of your problems are to get better. They're get better. You don't like your business, get better at business. You're not making money, get better at money. You don't like your tattoos, get better at tattoos. And if the mindset is right, if you will, and I'm not a hippie, so that's not where I'm at, but it's like, if I did everything I possibly could to make this thing work and it didn't work, then that's a failure. But if I gave up on it, that makes me a loser. And I'm not going out like that. You can beat me, but I'm not going to quit. That's the B team shit right there. Now, not everything I've ever done was a failure, but like I didn't let it not working stop me. I've got all kinds of weird companies and stuff going on all the time, and it's like a nightmare. And sometimes they're not working. But in business, if that's what we're talking about, business and your career, you got to think of this like a machine. Every day you go in and you tighten up some screws, and then the next day you go and you loosen some other ones, and it has to be fluid like that. Like I said, I'm willing to get beat, but I don't want to lose because I was a pussy. You know what I mean? Straight up. So it's like, you're talking about mindset, man. That's what I'm talking about. Like it's okay to go out and try. And you're talking about failing in businesses and stuff like that. Good, man. That's called experience. Without that, you have none. And that's the most valuable thing. I don't know the amount of books and stories I've heard about people that tried to do something and tried to do something and tried to do something and failed and failed and failed. And then that one thing that worked.
Yep.
Didn't suck.
Yep. I'd say with failure, the other part of that is kind of like you said, not quitting. Is people give up too easily, whether it's becoming a tattoo artist or pretty much anything. If it becomes hard, like, well, I'll just go do the next thing. And like a lot of people have come into the tattoo industry post-COVID, and you're seeing a lot of them starting to leave because it wasn't an immediate gratification. Hey, I'm not a millionaire yet. I'm not a rock star. So I'll jump onto the next thing. Where if you just like, I'm a huge believer there, unless you win the lottery, there's no such thing as an overnight success. There is 10, 15, 20 years behind that of someone busting their ass to finally get some kind of recognition and be where they want to be in life.
Yep.
Garrett, you talk about the COVID artist all the time. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I hate them fuckers.
Anything to cut off Million. You see, Million had an opinion. I was like, I don't want to hear Million's opinion. No, I'm kidding.
You know, for, you know, I always refer to them to the 2020 tattooers. They're people that started within the past 5 years. You know, they came in at the height of tattooing. Tattooing has never been crazier than it was in the past 5 years. More specifically, 5 years ago in 2020, after we all reopened from COVID and Corona. What happened is a lot of these, I'm going to refer to them as a younger generation of tattooers. What happened is they came in and the money was good. The books were solid. You know, people were booking out for a year and a half at a time. They didn't have to worry about anything. Well, now, you know, the market's just kind of correcting itself. And here we are now, I guess, Riley, I'd say we're in what, 2015 right now, you know, like business wise, maybe.
I was thinking more 13, but I'm on the West Coast. So
Yeah.
things are a little, yeah, that 2-year difference there. Yeah. 2013 is exactly what it feels like.
So, you know, for those younger tattooers looking at this, you know, if you thought you were just going to get in here and make some money real quick and run, I mean, I guess that's an option. But if you want to make a career out of it, it's going to take a little more work. You know, there's room for everyone. You know, I keep seeing this, you know, as we talked about the doom and gloom and you know, the whole darkness surrounding this industry at times. I keep seeing this being rephrased. It's not the end of the industry at all. It's a rebirth.
But the tattoo reset, I totally agree. We're going to go off here. I'm taking your show, Jesse. Listen, everybody's talked about the tattoo renaissance over the last 15 years. They're absolutely right. Tattooing has gone through a serious renaissance. And we all know that a renaissance means that it's happening right now. So every time you had a brand new tattoo machine, that was the best tattoo machine that's ever been built. Every time you looked on Instagram and you saw that amazing tattoo, that was the most amazing tattoo that's ever been done in the history of tattooing. That's a renaissance. I believe those days are over. I think we're doing a tattoo reset right now. With the way the industry's going, I don't want to get too deep, but the way the industry's going, the four of us know that 2/3 of this industry have been bought over the last 4 years and are controlled by 2 entities, period. That's going to choke down the supply chain and it's going to choke down innovation. So we're not going to see new innovations, new industry inks and new machines. We're going to see, they're going to hold stuff where they are. The artists are going to have to figure out how to navigate that. The shops are getting harder to manage. There's more things moving. We're going to go through a reset where the tattoo industry is going to have to figure out how to survive on its own without the economy, without these things. It's going to be very, very, very complicated. We had a reset in 2010, 2011 when we had the market crash. Most of the shops went by their wayside. I know, I bought 5 of those suckers in like 6 weeks. Yeah, I just bought everything in sight while everybody was dying. So I know what's up. I think we're gearing up, maybe not to that degree, but the Gen X tattooers of our generation are dying off and leaving and going away fast. And the next generation is moving in. So this reset's going to happen. Didn't mean to go off too much, but I really think that's where it is. I watch this market and I watch this industry like a hawk. We talk about it all the time. When Garrett said that maybe a month ago, and he talked about, you know, things are resetting, they're feeling like 2013. That's what happened in 2013. We got over this this economic change in this country and in this world, and we had to figure out how to do it again. Bye-bye with the street shop and hello custom shop and television. That's how it survived. Now we're in this different thing. It's going to have to do it again, but this time it's going to be YouTube, it's going to be Instagram, it's going to be Facebook.
Mhm.
Not to go off. Maisie disagrees. She thinks I'm an idiot. She's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I understand.
Well, and that kind of goes back to like I was saying a little while ago, like there's ups and downs. It's going to happen eventually when the market corrects. Things will get back to some sort of normal, and then we'll see if it goes back up to some kind of height, some event drops back down. But guys that have been doing this long enough, like you, know that that's just part of the cycle, and just ride it out, do the best you can, but it will get back to normal at some point.
Or to
And-
redefine, it's going to redefine normal. You know, I don't think there's any going back to normal. I don't think there ever has been a normal for this. It's going to redefine normal. The 2020 money, the funny money, it's gone. You know, we're not seeing the days of 2020, 21 and 22, 23. We won't see it again.
I think
Not
we'll
in my
still
lifetime.
see peaks and valleys, but they're going to be much lower, much more smooth.
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to spike nearly as much as that did.
Well, I agree with everything both you guys just said. That's the beauty of what the three of us do is we've got three kind of varied opinions, but they're all going the same direction. I think the ebb and flows of tattooing are going to come back like they used to. There used to be seasons that were definitely, you know, and right there all the time, and artists had to adapt, you know. Remember the old adage, like, how do I get tattoos in the winter? Well, you work really hard in August. That's how you get tattoos in the winter. So
Yeah.
some of those old fables will come back. But on the other hand, it's going to be like the new normal. Yeah, man, we're there. And a while back, I don't remember which one of you two or three, or even Maisie, I don't know. One of the four of you said, you know, there's artists that came in 2020 that are going out the door now because it's not the same. Good, that's part of the process. Go. The world
Yeah.
needs bartenders. I need someone to wash my car. Go on and get the hell out of my industry and leave it to somebody else. That's totally fine. That's part of the process. I think people will come into the business and won't be able to survive and have to go away. And as cold as that is, that's just the nature of the beast. That's the way it'll
Yeah,
be.
it really has been a long time since I've heard somebody say that they used to be a tattooer, but there was no money in it. It's been a long time since I've heard somebody say that. You're going to start hearing that a lot more coming
Mhm.
up.
It's been a decade since that was anywhere out here on the West Coast where you run across a guy that was, had a different job and he's like, oh, I used to tattoo, and you didn't even know who he was. And now he's, working real estate or something.